Welcome to Seltzer Squad, the podcast about staying sober in the city, with your hosts, Kate Sander and Jess Valentine.
Today's episode is sponsored by Audible. Have you just finished binging every single episode of Seltzer Squad and want even more content to fill your time with? Why don't you check out audible.com? They have millions of audiobooks and exclusive podcasts that you can't get anywhere else. And if you want your first month free, go to audibletrial.com/Seltzer Squad. Get your first month free. Think of how many free books you can get in that much time. Once again, go to audibletrial.com/Seltzer Squad and get your first month free. Hey Squad, Natalie here, editor and producer of Seltzer Squad. Do you want another way to support the pod? Go to seltzersquadshop.com and have access to all of our merch. Treat yourself and support the squad at the same time. We have hats, stickers, backpacks, posters. Buy a gift for a sober friend or just treat yourself. You can find all of the classic Seltzer Squad sayings like slickest bitch around, be nice to yourself, and of course hangovers suck. I have a tank top that says slickest bitch around, and I wear it to the gym, and it confuses everybody. It's the best. Once again, go to seltzersquadshop.com or go to seltzersquad.com and hit the merch button to find all of our merch.
Hey, Squad. I have a little announcement to make because Jess is getting married this weekend, and she's going to be going on her honeymoon. So in lieu of giving her some space, because Lord knows she's probably stressed out, I have another squad member on. Her name is Jac. I don't know how to introduce you because I know you so well. Hi, Jac. Hey, Jac.
Hi. Thanks, Kate.
I don't know. I feel like you need no introduction. Jac and I met. I feel like we can get into that later, but
oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, let's get into it. I guess we should tell the story of how we met, right?
Yeah, I think it's a very serendipitous story.
Yeah, so the one I don't know if maybe some of you old squaddies remember, but Jess and I held one and only Zoom event where we were trying to create like these weekly or monthly Zoom meetings. And of course, in true fashion, we could only get one organized over the course of 4 years. But Jac attended that meeting. And I feel like something just kind of clicked for me and Jess. Both Jess and I were talking about you afterwards to each other. And then you hit us both up separately. And then we kind of hit it off from there and we became fast friends, right?
Yeah, we totally did. And it's so wild because when I got sober, I listened to all the podcasts and like all the things. And it was in May of 2020. Mm-hmm. So everything was closed and I was working from home and I live in a city that's not my hometown. I didn't have a community at all. I was just making it myself. And I didn't find a community until November. So from May to November, I was just
and you came
on
to
my
the
own
Zoom,
doing it.
When was it? It was like later
October,
in the year.
It was
yeah. Okay.
It was like Halloween.
And when did you start listening to the podcast?
So my sober date's May 28th, 2020. Yeah. And I started listening probably like 2 weeks later.
Okay.
But what I did was I binged from the beginning. Well, I don't think it was all there from Apple, or maybe it was at that point.
Was it during our war? Yeah.
No, I think at that point, because it was 2 years ago, it was available.
Got it.
But I did witness all the wars.
Okay.
But I listened to all of it. And then, so, by the time your Zoom came, I had caught up in real life and everything. And so the fact that you had that was my first Zoom. That was my first time like speaking to anybody that was sober. My ex-husband at the time was not sober. And so that was just my first time ever having that. And the fact that I felt like I knew you guys so well, it's just like crazy to be here at this moment. And I feel like, you and I say all the time, like anything can happen, like in sobriety, like we can do anything. And I feel like that's so true. Because you guys were like my friends before, like when I was building my own community, but it's just like putting yourself out there. And that Zoom call, I mean, when I think about it, that's how I also heard about Laura McCallan's The Luckiest Club was on that Zoom call. Mm-hmm. And that has changed my life in so many ways as well. So I'm really grateful that you guys had that Zoom call.
Me too. It's so funny to
Here
think
I am.
about, like the one and
I
only
know.
time. Okay, so let's rewind because so May 2020 was like high pandy, right? High pandemic is what I'm referring to. The early
Yes,
days
very.
is high pandemic. Like, walk us through your story.
So, starting like with like 2020, I would say, you know, my story is different in the fact that I didn't start drinking until my late 20s. I had like a sugar thing, and during college and all of that, like I lived in LA, Los Angeles after college, and I didn't really like getting drunk because I would get so sick afterwards. Like my hangovers were so terrible that I didn't really like it. And then in my late 20s is when the drinking, I didn't know it at the time because I wasn't in therapy yet, but I realized I was using it to push down a lot of emotions and numb some stuff out. But I didn't notice that at the time. I just thought, oh, I'm just drinking more. And then leading up from that to 2020, I drank for probably like, I don't know, maybe 5 years that I felt were like, it got worse and, you know,
it was
worse.
escalating. Yeah,
it was escalating where there were like dark days, you know, like in 2020 is when I remember doing things where I'm like, okay, this is like not, I was like alone by myself, like just doing things where I just didn't feel like I was being myself anymore. And I didn't even realize this till I got sober, but I started noting when I was drinking in 2020, like didn't drink tonight.
like in your notes,
you know?
or in your calendar, or where?
Yeah, in my calendar, in my journal. I always have a journal. Like I have one right here with me right now. Like I always have some sort of journal. So yeah, back in February of 2020, I started like paying attention to that more. And in March of 2020, when the pandemic hit, I started working from home. And I work at a big corporate company. And all of a sudden, we were all working from home, which I had gone from working just a couple of days a week from home whenever I wanted to, pretty much to like, you have to work at home.
Being locked inside.
And then I was like, my anxiety is real. And so I was like, oh, cool, we're all going to die. It's going to be like, and at this time I'd been in therapy now for like 7 years. And my therapist was like, what are you most afraid of? And I said like guards being outside my door, standing there and being like, you can't leave. And that's like what I thought was going to happen. So I, like I said, my ex-husband we were married at the time. I didn't leave the house. I think it was like 52 days or something.
Which sounds like, so crazy now, but back then it wasn't crazy.
Not at all. Like, and because he was working outside of the house. So he would go to the grocery store. He would do all the errands.
Yeah. And
I would have him like strip in the garage.
Yeah.
I remember like wiping down the groceries, like all the things.
Yes.
Yes. And so, yeah, I just was just so isolated. Like I said, my family's from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So like they're all back in Pittsburgh. I didn't really have that many people here because I'm in Louisville, Kentucky, and I moved here in 2018. So early 2020, like I still hadn't even met a lot of people yet at that point. So I just started noticing the drinking was getting earlier in the day. Like,
yeah, because no one was there.
6 came 4. Yeah. And then like, it wasn't just like, I was a binge drinker. So it was like, I didn't drink in the mornings. I didn't drink like all day, but like come Thursday, like Friday, Saturday, like Sunday, I was like, I called it my vampire days. I would be in bed all day with the windows drawn and hungover. Even my family, I'd be like, I'm having a vampire day. Like they knew what that meant. But I just noticed the time was getting shorter in between the not drinking days. And so in May of 2020, I actually was listening to My Favorite Murder podcast. And I hadn't listened to that podcast in a while, but for some reason I listened to a January episode. And one of the hosts was listening to This Naked Mind by Annie Grace. Wow. And that is how I got to Annie Grace, like in my head.
Yeah, that was your gateway.
So I was like, that was my gateway. In May of 2020, something they said on a murder podcast in January of 2020. But that's something that, the universe has just been guiding me, I feel like, this whole time. So
And you were like writing yourself notes, right? Like when you were hammered, weren't you like writing yourself
I
memos?
hadn't yet.
Okay.
I was getting to that point. Yes. And so I listened to This Naked Mind, and it did, like, I listened to the Audible. It changed the way that I thought about alcohol, understanding the science behind it, understanding why I was getting so hungover, why it was all like, oh, wow, like
this is poison. She's right.
If I touch a flame, I'm going to get burned. It was like so easy. And yet, like, wow. So I decided, like, I'm not going to drink anymore. And so I went and left the house for the first time. So from March to May, I was getting my hair done.
You're like, well, I'm fixed. I'm leaving now.
I was like, well, I had this plan, like we could get like essentials. So I was like, oh my God, okay. So I had my hair appointment down the street.
So you were getting essentials.
Essentials, yes. I drive there, you know, and I was so used to going there and drinking, having my wine, like, you know, relaxing. I go there and it is like, you have to call before you come in. That's when the pandemic rules were like, and notably, like needed to be, but like you wear your mask the entire time. Like there is no drinking of anything. Yeah. And so I had been isolated since March, you know, like in the world. So that just hit me like, oh my God, this is how it's going to be forever. Like this is how we're going to live. Of course, I like went to the extreme, and I left there and I was just like, what life is this now? Like, how are we going to live like this? And I came home and I was just like, I had 4 days of sobriety. I was like, do not do it. And I had never really tried to get sober before, you know, but I was like, don't do it. You know, it's poison, you know? And I was like, I don't care. This world's like ending. Like, this is stupid. So I poured a glass of wine, and then I switched to vodka, but I didn't do any shots. So I thought that was like, look at me, like having all this control. And so my ex and I got in a fight. Shocker. Like, I don't even know about what. Not even like a fight. Just like yelling about stuff. Yeah. I chipped my tooth on something, like a glass. I don't know. I just spit out like a piece of tooth, I remember. That's when I was smoking cigarettes, like just when I was drinking. So smoking cigarette again, like, and that night I was laying in bed spinning. And that's when I wrote myself. Well, I first wrote a poem in my phone, like to my grandma, and it was like SOS, which I actually have a necklace on here with her handwriting because she has been like such a part of my journey. She passed in January of 2020. So I wrote her something. Then after that, I wrote myself a note that I, again, didn't remember.
No recollection of,
No, nothing. And so I woke up on May 28th of 2020, feeling like shit, go in the bathroom. I was like not throwing up at this point. And I was going through my notes because that's what I would do. I would like cringe looking at to see who I called or texted. And then I would sometimes write myself like notes. Yeah. And I found this note that I wrote myself, and it said like, can you relapse in 4 days? That was the first sentence because I had never like really tried to quit drinking. And then I was like, I said in the note that I didn't do any shots. That's how I know I didn't do any shots, is because I wrote that. But I said like, but vodka doesn't care how it like gracks you. And again, this is what I'm like hammered. I'm writing this. And I wrote like conversations just kept going in circles. I chipped my tooth and I was like, and here I am again. Yeah. And then I wrote at the very end, the last sentence I wrote, please, Jay, can you stop for me? And I sat on that toilet. And I still get the chills like when I say that, because I was just like, whoa, like this is from the depths of me that like I don't even like. It was almost like the truest version of me that I hadn't seen in so long came back. Like I feel like for one more time, and was like, please stop for me. And if like I felt like that was like, if I don't do it at that moment, there's nothing greater than that. Right. Ask of myself, you know? And so I was like, I was sitting there on the toilet, like crying. And I was just like, yes, I can. And so I got sober, and I haven't had any.
So what
drugs,
did you do at first?
Cigarettes, nothing since May 28th of 2020. Quit all of it.
Okay. So I also want to interject like a side note. One of the other reasons why I wanted to have Jac on is because I feel like you're always doing the most. So,
oh my gosh. I'm drinking water. It's not Diet Coke. I'm not tricking you.
Jack has like the most healthy, I don't know, life. You have like the healthiest life. Like,
I don't know.
you feel your emotions, you journal, you like go to therapy, you exercise regularly, you're doing all the things to take care of yourself. Like sometimes she'll be like, I had a really heavy day emotionally and I'm turning off my phone and I will not be responding to your texts. Like just very healthy, all the things. And so I wanted to know if you could teach us your ways, because I think
God.
I definitely deal with like addiction transference, and it doesn't, I mean, I'm sure you do maybe in your own way, but for me, it's like whack-a-mole. And I think I'm always like, you're fucking doing the most. Like, tell us how to get fixed, because you really do.
Lord.
You process like in real time. And I think that there's an art to that. And I think many of us, or maybe just me, is still trying to like shovel feelings somewhere inside in an unhealthy way. And like, while I've gotten better at dealing with my emotions, I still struggle a lot with that. And I think that's one of your strongest areas, is like, you're okay to just like let it rip. I mean that in like a nice, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no,
you're always like our other friend Leah, we're like, fucking Jack's always doing the most. She's healing the most.
Oh my God. No, I mean, thank you for saying that. That is like, I don't know, that coming from you means so much to me. So thank you. I really think like it goes back to that concept of I choose me. And so when I said to myself, please, Jay, can you stop for me? I like shifted to a place that said, yes, I am going to choose you. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't even know at that time what that would 2 years plus now, like what that meant.
You really do, like, that is your theme. Like, you really do choose you.
I have to. I mean, I feel like I saved my life. You know, I didn't have like that, you know, people are like, I didn't have like a rock bottom but I feel like me being drunk, reaching from my inner self, writing myself a note, asking me to stop drinking, like that was like a rock bottom, like for me.
Sure.
You know, I feel like, and so, but you know, like, yeah, like I didn't have, like, I never was arrested. I never got a DUI. I never like did any of those types of things. Like never.
It didn't get there.
I would,
thankfully. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But it was just like choosing me. And then that little by little started opening up this door of like the me that I was like before I was drinking. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I was actually looking today because they announced today that the charges are being filed for the officers in Breonna Taylor's death. Yes. And I was, you know, living in Lou. The first weekend that I was sober, I went to protest downtown, and I went to, on her birthday, they did a balloon release, and I was doing these things sober, like my first weekend being sober. Like, I'm going to go like down here. My ex was like, I'm afraid, like, I'm afraid to go down there. So good luck. Okay, thanks. But choosing me, like, I felt like I can't sit here. Like, what am I doing wasting these vampire days? Like, I'm going out in the world. And I remember like parking to go to a protest, and one of the, I used my like parking pass for work because I used to work like downtown. And I remember like walking there, and it was just like, oh, I'm not tailgating. Like, we don't tailgate before protest now. Like, it was just such an odd feeling. And showing up there, everyone had on masks, you know, and just kind of being like, where can I be of service? Like literally asking people, like, I didn't even know really what that meant.
Sure.
So I was there, and they just were like, go over here, like do this, do that. And so I feel like that choosing me, like that is what it goes back to. Like, so I kind of like switch it where I feel like when I was thinking of it just as like, I'm not going to drink. That didn't seem like big enough almost, like, because it was so easy. Like when I got back from my hair appointment to be like, oh my God, I'm scared. Like that sucks. Okay, I'm just going to drink. But when I reframed it to like, I choose me, then it was like, oh wait, like I can't like do this, or I can do this, and I can say no to these things, and I can do that. So it does kind of start with like, for me, that mindset. And I actually have like, I wear like 2 bracelets, one I got for each of my sober anniversaries. And the one says I choose me with my sober date. And then the second one says there is no Oz with my second year of sobriety, because I feel like that too is such an important part of my journey, is knowing that no one is going to do it for me, and no one is going to give me anything, or I have to do the work myself. So I choose me, and there is no us. So like I have to choose me and then do the thing.
I think too, like there's no healthier decision than doing it for yourself versus like for me, it's like you come off of a bad hangover where I like treated my partner poorly, or I got arrested, or, you know, like there's some cause and effect that's like, okay, now that's going to shame me into realizing that I have this issue, where like me, my core, myself, choosing me was like nowhere in that equation. It was like, you are bad. You need to stop doing this bad stuff. And so I feel like you choosing you is a much more healthy foundation for starting that, because it does make the decision. Like then you're just saying, I choose me. And whereas I was saying like, I can't drink, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It feels very like
I'm broken.
Right. And it feels very like, for me, that felt like, I can't drink, like felt like I was in like building another prison, like for myself, like these walls. And, I love the book, Quit Like a Woman by Holly Whitaker. And, I decided in like June of 2020 that, you know what, I'm going to go on vacation by myself to a beach I've never been to. And I had this like mindset, like somewhere in New England. And I found this beach called Hall, Massachusetts. And I like told my ex at the time, you know, I told him like, I'm going on vacation by myself. And he was like, okay. And I had never been to a beach sober, let alone like for 5 days alone, like never. And as soon as I got there, and Holly's book, she talks about never question the decision, NQTD. And I wrote NQTD in the sand as soon as I got there and took a picture of it. And I remember she like liked it. And I was like, oh my God, like I'm on the right path, you know? And I actually have, like, if you go up, like my steps here, I have all pictures from that vacation, just like on my whole wall. So every time I go up the steps, like up to my bedroom, I see that. And the NQTD is one of those pictures, because I feel like it is in with all of that. Like I never question the decision about drinking
or choosing yourself.
And so, right. And so for me, it's like, I totally understand the thought process, like we just have today, like one day at a time. For me, when I thought of one day at a time, it felt too long, kind of like I need to get this like out of my plate, like off my plate, and like onto the next kind of thing. And so being able to say, I choose me, never question the decision, was that way that I was able to say, like, I'm a non-drinker. I was a non-drinker for most of my life. And so, you know, for me, I could take that approach. I understand that, you know, that's not for everybody, but
sure.
That never question the decision is just something that I always kind of go back to.
Yeah. And I mean, I want to also say, like, everybody's dependence, physical and chemical dependence on alcohol looks different. Everybody's highs and lows look different. So I don't want to, you know, like sugarcoat that getting sober for people that have a solid, you know, physical and chemical dependence on alcohol. It doesn't maybe just look like, oh, I came home from the hair salon and got drunk, and then the next day I quit for good, you know, obviously.
Yeah, wrote myself a note and said that I quit. Yeah. And I wasn't, luckily, like I didn't like get to that point where I was physically dependent on it.
You were on the wrong road though, for sure.
Know?
Yeah. Like at the time, I feel like also because
you were
in a relationship where both of you drank a lot, right? And I think that escalates things too.
That escalated. And then I think too, I did so much work, you know, in therapy and doing all the things. And then when the pandemic hit, it was like all the anxieties were starting to come out. And I was so isolated, so alone that I was going back to harmful behaviors, like trigger warning for cutting. Like I like cut myself the one day. And my ex like went to the store, and he left, and I did that. And I had about like maybe like 2 glasses of wine. So I wasn't drunk, but I remembered, like, I called him instantly and was like, hey, I did this. And it was like, I hadn't done that in so long that scared me to think that I could go down dark paths like that. I remember I would go for runs, and it would be a hill and I would run up the hill in the dark on the road.
Oh yeah, like weird stuff.
Like, and I wasn't in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, I'm definitely going to get hit. I was on the side of the road, and I was just like, you know what?
Whatever happens, happens.
Whatever. And of course, like, I mean, I did have enough things I could get over, but I was like, I was completely sober then because I was, you know, I could not run drunk.
Right.
But it was that type of like, I always say like, with my anxiety and depression and different things like that, like drinking was like the worst thing because it let my mind go to those dark places. And so that's why sometimes when I feel triggered, it's not necessarily that I want to drink. It would be something darker, you know? And the last time I remember really feeling triggered was in March. I was going on a birthday trip and the flight got canceled. The connected flight. And it was like the world had ended because I was like, in my mind, that trip was going to be my reset. Like, okay, you can breathe, you can do all the things. And I just was like, and I wanted a cigarette. Like, that's what I wanted more than a drink. But it went back to like, I choose me, you know, going back to my things and getting through it, you know, and it's not easy to do that. But for me, that's what has helped me do those behaviors that help me be as healthy as I can be in all the ways.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about like processing your feelings. Cause you are like a professional feeler.
Oh, wow.
You're a professional feeler.
Oh, that could sound different in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I mean, walk me through like how it works for you. This is me just asking for myself selfishly, because I think that you're so good about being like, today was like what I want to, so Jac is going to do a part 2 where we go through relationship stuff because she's been through all of the relationship things throughout her sobriety. So I'll get more into that. But like, I remember when you were processing some of your relationship stuff and you sort of like planned ahead and knew that some of these things were going to be really heavy and then kind of gave yourself some grace. And so how do you do that? Like, cause you were really good about being like, I know tomorrow's going to be like a bad day. So I'm like, I took a half day off of work and I never have the foresight for any of that.
This is what's like really interesting. Cause I feel like, again, I mean, we knew we were going to talk today.
Yeah.
But so something happened yesterday that like you don't even know about.
Okay.
And it was funny. And I didn't even really plan on waking up early to like write, but I did. Yeah. And that's why earlier I was like, oh my God, I got to grab my journal because this is like one of those examples that I didn't even know that you were going to like ask me about. But I feel like, so I had this opportunity. I've been looking for this, like my next step at work. So I went and I've been applying and my director, like she knows about it and like all the things. And I got through the first round. Okay. So that was like 3 weeks ago. So I was so excited. It's all Zoom, you know, it was like to the director and like the lead. And that went very well. And I felt it like in my gut, you know, when you feel like there's nothing I could have changed, like I would have done differently. So the next step would be to meet with the whole team, which was 12 people. Sure enough.
Rude.
I was like, all right, let's do this. So I got the second interview, which I knew was like the last one because I'd gone through like 3 online things, one on face-to-face, and then this was the next one. So that was last Wednesday, and it was 12 people, and they were asking me all kind of things from what state would I get rid of to what are my cats' names, like all the things. And I got off and I felt like that went really well, you know, and the team was just so amazing. I wrote each of them individual thank yous, you know, and said like,
she is always doing the most, folks.
But I really just was like, thank you. Like, I don't know. Like, I just felt like a good connection with all of them.
Of course.
But that was funny. I did catch your eye roll. And I was like, oh, I just an example. Of course you did. But I just felt like so good. And then I started thinking like, oh, if I get this job, I'm going to be able to like all these good things, you know, like finally, like it's my same company, but it's a whole different business. and it would just be like learning new things, like feeling like I'm being seen and validated for the work I've done, get more money, like be able to tell people who've been supporting me. Yes. Been like, tell people that like you, like, guess what? I got this position. You'd be like,
finally.
oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like feeling just so good about it. And then yesterday I got an email that said like all the other emails, thank you for applying.
Fuck,
Unfortunately,
really?
we're not. Yeah, yesterday. And then I got a ping from the recruiter that said, hey, I'd like to talk to you about the, and I'm just like, I was like holding back tears.
Of course.
And
So I know
was
this is the
just
second
like,
time this has happened to you, Jac, in a year. Remember?
Oh, yeah. With the job stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. Same company. And I'm just like, what do I need to do here? And this time it was like, I was so there. Like I'd never gotten this far, and I think because like I said, the team was so cool and, all the things. So I called the recruiter, and he said that you were strong, blah, blah, blah. He said basically like it came down to the other person being more technical about, they just had more technical experience. Like meow, 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 whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, bye-bye. I got to get off the phone so I can start bawling. Okay, see ya. Keep me in mind for anything else. So I hang up and I just like started crying.
Of course.
Because I was just like, I can't even, all the things, part of me was like, why did you even let yourself get to a point where you like thought you were like worthy, and why did you think you were going to get this? And now you have to tell, like, I didn't even tell, like, you didn't even know, like, I did not tell a lot of people about this because I was just like, I wanted to have that space. But I just was like very upset about it. And then like yesterday during the day, I couldn't like focus on work.
Sure.
Because someone would email me and I'm like, screw you. Like,
I was like, you're
like, you're not doing
pissed. You're like, fuck all of this. I'm going to throw my computer out the window. Yeah.
I was just like in this weird space where I was like mad, and then I was like sad, and then I was, but again, like I allowed myself to do all that. And then at 4:00, I shut off my computer. Usually I work till 5, but I was like, no, I'm done. Like I shut my computer. I did not feel like I had to be like, I'm leaving an hour early. Cause I'm like, I don't message everybody. I'm here an hour early every morning.
Right.
And so I shut my computer, had some tacos, and went to bed at like 6:00. And
Side note, that's the other thing, Squad. It's completely unreasonable. She goes to bed.
I do go to bed really early.
That's the one self-care thing that you're amazing at, but like, fucking what the fuck?
Yes. 6:00, and I had an ice cream cookie from Trader Joe's in bed.
It was still light outside, Jac.
I was like, I watched like Without a Trace and just laid in bed, all the cats, and cried a little bit, and I had a good, slept well. I woke up and I was still like kind of like in the funk, but it was one of my like very good friends. Her birthday is tomorrow. And so I knew yesterday that I wasn't in a space to write in her card.
Sure.
And she deserved me to be like in a good headspace for her. So I woke up at 5:30, no alarm or anything. I know you love that too. And I hit the floor running.
I think you're a robot. Like, I think you're part of the simulation. You're so healthy
swear,
that you're part of the simulation. I hung out. Okay, wait, let me just say like how healthy you are. Like, I mean, like emotionally, psychologically, is I hung out with Jac in real life twice, and the second time she brought candy from her house. Oh my God. And she was like, yeah, I've had this candy in my house for like months. And I was like, you didn't eat all of the candy? What do you mean? I have candy in my house for like 3 days tops. And you're like, yeah, I just have like a few of these every day. And I was like,
I'm not even going to show you like
you're
the candy
a fucking
bowls
psychopath.
I have, like,
obviously,
I'm
you're
like,
a
I have like
psychopath.
5.
Yes.
Yeah, you're like, you are a serial killer. But this morning, like I woke up and I wrote in her card, and I have to go mail it. So I'm driving, and then this is where it's like you allowing yourself to be open. And so I didn't really want to go to the post office, but I wanted to do that. And as I'm driving, I've been listening to Laura Lynn Jackson, who is a psychic medium. I read her second book called Signs.
Okay.
dude, you don't even know. Like, I will I will send you the picture after this call. Nails are a thing that my gram sends me. I walked.
What do you mean, like nails or like nails?
No, gross.
Okay.
No, like hammer and nails.
Okay, got it.
I left the pool like a couple weeks ago, walked on my side. There were like 15 nails, like rusted,
Weird.
old. And I went a different way that I normally would walk.
Yeah.
Like, so I came home, I took a picture of all the nails on the book because I was just like, okay, this is wild. And so she has, her first book was called The Light Between Us. And I got the audio version for the Chicago. I went to Chicago for a drive. And so I'm like, I will listen to this on my drive home. And so I did. So I have like an hour left of it. This morning, I did not actually want to listen to it because I was like, it's about like, she talks about like death and different things, but in a beautiful way. And so I was like, no, you're going to listen to this. So I'm driving, listening to her read her book, and the sun's starting to come up. And like, I'm like, oh, like, look at the sky. It was, you know, the purples and the pinks and the reds. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, universe, like, what do you got for me now?
It's beautiful.
Yeah, I'm like, cool, it's a nice sky.
Yeah.
Awesome, you know? And then
still didn't get that fucking job though.
No, and I was like, cool, like awesome, you know? And then she talks, then the next chapter is called Bonsai Tree. And I'm like, okay. So I do like my errands by 6:30, get home. I'm like getting ready. And she's still on the chapter Bonsai Tree. And she says, she talks about this guy who had some trauma in his childhood. And when she was doing a reading on him, she got a vision of this bonsai tree, and she knew like what it meant. And she had said that a bonsai tree is this tree that is planted in a confined area, a confined box, and it's pruned and clipped by the owner of the tree to make sure it doesn't get all out of control, and they can shape it and form it any way they want. And she said how he was like that bonsai tree for so long, and his like artistic self was pushed down because of the people and different circumstances in his life. And she said, like, you're actually a redwood tree, like shooting past. And I'm telling you, Kate, I like felt like a redwood tree, like shoot up for me. Like as I was getting ready, like I felt like that was for me to hear that you are not a bonsai tree anymore. Like that was you a couple years ago. And you didn't get that job because we have to keep reminding you that this is not your dharma. This is not your essence. So we will keep reminding you that you're not supposed to like be doing this. And so here's another like hard reminder.
You're better than the next rung of marketing levels.
It's just like, it's like this would have been a relief for like 1 second. And then it would have been
a distraction into that whole like hurricane. It would have been,
right? And so I was listening to this and I'm just like, oh my God, like bonsai tree, you know? And I was like, well, I guess I'm going to have to go right now. So I got out my journal and I sat like in my living room and I like just started like writing, and I wrote down like all of the things that, I'm like looking at my journal, but I wrote down all of the things that I was like acknowledging. Like I acknowledged that I like did not get the job. I acknowledged that this would cause me. I wrote down like what I was going to get when I got that job. I was going to be on a new path. I was going to have a new start. I was going to be refreshed. I was going to be this. And then I was like, as I wrote this, I'm processing it in real time. And I'm able to see as I write, why am I letting a job dictate when I can start a new path? Like, no. I can start a new path whenever I want to, as I did when I chose me, and I continue to choose me. So I don't need a job to give me permission to start a new path. I'm actually just holding myself back, not doing that. So again, if I wouldn't have wrote any of that out, if I wouldn't have listened to her, if I wouldn't have got up early, if I wouldn't have went to bed early yesterday, if I wouldn't have allowed myself all that time. And at the end, like I was like, it still sucks to get the job. I'm still pissed off about it. You know, I still feel like I deserved it, but I was able to see like, okay, this is another indication that like, I'm supposed to do that other thing that I know that's like inside of me, And so like, it's funny because at the very end, I was writing, like what I will do, like I will remember the bonsai tree turning into a redwood tree. And then, but I wrote like, I will acknowledge that I'm like scared and that, you know, this hurt. But at the very end, I wrote, I will stand in my truth, keep fighting, keep listening to messages, keep writing, and most important, keep choosing me. There is no us. And again, I didn't even know that we were going to talk about that. But, and then this was like around 8 o'clock. So after that,
Bitch, you did all this shit before 8 a.m.?
Yes.
You had like a spiritual awakening? I wasn't even awake. Okay.
But again, it's because like I allowed, like I was open to it. And I also did steps
you created
yesterday
space
where I like
for it.
went to sleep. Yeah. And was like, this is what I'm going to do. And then at 8 o'clock, like I'm part of like the Luckiest Club. Like that's my sobriety support community. And so I get on calls at 8 a.m. So I got on that call. And then that was like watered me, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then I wrote an email to the director who decided not to hire me. And I wrote her one today and I said, you know what? Thank you for the opportunity. I think
you're making a big fucking mistake. No.
That's what I probably would have wrote yesterday. But today, since I was in a different space, I was like,
thank you so much for passing on me.
Good luck.
I'm a redwood, not a bonsai. Sorry for yelling.
See. No. But I wrote like, I felt like a good energy with your team and that has not changed. And I said, so thank you for the opportunity. And that is true. And I'm like, yeah, like, and she wrote me back and said like, it came down to like the technical stuff, like you, like all the things that it just felt good, like hearing that from her, even though the recruiter had said that. And then I wrote like this other email to someone else in the company that I'd been kind of putting off. And it was like doing those things. And then I was like, you know what? I'm taking tomorrow off. So I sent my team an email and I wrote like PTO tomorrow. I sent my director an email and I said, I need to take a mental health day tomorrow. Thank you for understanding. Sorry. And I apologize. Sorry. They noticed. And I was like open about all that. So tomorrow I'm off. And it's kind of like, that's going to be my reset that I said that I needed this other job to give me all those things. And I'm going to allow myself to like catch up on like Marco Polo that I haven't looked at, catch up on like things that I know will keep me whole and not go down those rabbit holes of like being mad all weekend that I didn't get a job that I want, but not for the right reasons necessarily.
Sure.
So that's an example of like feeling it in like real time. Like that, I found out that yesterday that I didn't get the position. And if I would be in that place where I wasn't processing things, like I would have not been able to talk to you.
Sure.
Because I would have been like, ooh, what was me? Like, you know,
I don't have anything to offer. Yeah,
like I had that, I acknowledge like I'm going to feel bad for myself today because this sucks, like yesterday, you know, and I might have felt like that today too if I didn't like hear that bonsai story, because I really felt like, and then once I wrote connecting the two, like where I'm like, wow, I'm giving a lot of clout to this like job I don't even have, like to give me permission for all these things when
that like you'll like for 3 months and then it'll like the like newness will wear off and you'll be like, well, this fucking sucks.
It's a job, right? Yeah. It's like everything. It's not my passion.
Right.
Like I do enjoy it, like marketing, but my passion is like helping others. My passion is like talking about like, like rating connections, like all those things. So I feel like even though like it's a hard lesson from the universe to remind myself, like, no, you're actually not supposed to be doing that. It's one that I'm like, okay, like I hear you. Yeah. I don't like it, but I hear you. Right. You know? So it's just like going through it like that. And I feel like that's something that I did not do in sobriety and I would never have been able to do if it doesn't go back to like, I choose me.
Yeah, that's smart. Okay.
So that's like
tell us what those magical bonsai books are again.
Laura Lynn Jackson is the author. The first book is called The Light Between Us.
Okay.
And the second one is called Signs.
Got it.
And they're both just, I mean.
You're into it. Okay, I'll check it out. I'm finally done with summer school, so I have like 5 minutes before fall school starts.
Okay, well, there you go. Yeah. Like, and like I said,
I want something to like feel light and enriching.
The Audible version of The Light Between Us was what I listened to on a drive back from Chicago at like 8 p.m. was when I started my 5-hour drive. So she's talking about connecting to like loved ones who have crossed, and I'm just like crying through tears, like feeling all the things. And I feel I've always had like this intuitive side, this like intuition. And I feel like in sobriety, I have connected to that side more and not been like, I know how to kind of like channel it differently, where before it would be like drinking to kind of quiet that. And now that I am sober, I can allow that.
It's like you can harness it differently, right? Like it feels chaotic before.
Yes, that is the perfect word.
Today's episode is sponsored by BetterHelp.com. If your New Year's resolution, like me, was to start going to therapy, you will love BetterHelp.com. It is cheaper and more convenient than conventional therapy. You can talk to a licensed, real therapist online via call, video chat, or just text, whatever you're feeling like, whatever you feel comfortable with. Go to BetterHelp.com. They'll set you up with a real licensed professional therapist. You take a short quiz and they decide who they think would be best for you. But if you don't like them for whatever reason, you can switch at any time with no penalty. Just go to betterhelp.com, and if you use our code Seltzer Squad or go to betterhelp.com/Seltzer Squad, you will get 10% off your first month. Don't put it off anymore. Go to betterhelp.com and get started with real therapy today.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like never ending, like, you know, and now it's like, there's been times where I've gone into the grocery store and I feel like too overwhelmed I will walk out.
Yeah.
I will just walk out and I'm like, what's happening to me? But I'm just like, I have to leave, you know?
Yeah.
And so
I think that's also like empath stuff,
that.
right? Like you can't,
totally.
It's hard to take on too many feelings. That's why like this working from home is both a blessing and a curse, because it's like we tend to isolate anyway, right? Because we're really protective. But then also if you get overstimulated, then it's hard.
And that's like Laura Lynn.
It's also a trauma response, right? Like is like you're always measuring everybody's, like you're calculating all the time.
Yeah. And she actually talks about like being an empath, like it's the first sign of like why we feel like all these things. And it's like, you do take on so much of that. And so I feel like that's something where I know for me, like early on in my recovery, and I can't even imagine how many messages and all the things like you get, but it's like, I wanted to help like every single person that reached out to me. And I would put so much of my energy into like, I have to be that one person that helps them, you know? And then if something would happen and they would relapse or something, I took it so personally, and it has nothing to do like with me.
Totally.
And being like an empath and all the things, it was like, I really had to navigate, how do I be an active service, but also take care of myself in a healthy way and be there to help people. And so I've been able to do that, which I never would have. I wasn't able to do that or set boundaries or any of that stuff. Yeah. And it was nice. Like today when I was closing out for the day, I put my out office on. I had thought for a minute, like, well, maybe I'll just work until noon, because working from home, it's so easy to like
open up the laptop. And
I was like, no.
Yeah.
Right. I was like,
well, and that's a distraction too, right? Like, it's like, it's a nice escape and a distraction. And I feel like, you know, when I'm really stressed, especially like during school time, I move from screen to screen all day. It's like I wake up and I'm looking at my phone. I go to work, I'm looking at my computer screen. I log into school. Then it's like phone screen again, iPad screen. It's like a million screens for different reasons to fill a different need, right? But I like that you make sure to carve out space for yourself to like think and feel, and then also write, because I think that that's really important too. I feel like we could I ask Jac all the time how to journal, because I feel like you're doing it differently than I'm doing it, which we could probably talk about for a whole episode. Maybe Squad, if you guys are interested in journaling, we could have Jac
I love journaling.
Teach us the ways. But the one other thing,
I did start a little like journal squad.
You did? Okay. Maybe we need to join your journal
squad.
Women
that, yes. But yeah, journaling has been, I've journaled since I was a kid. So it's been something that's been part of me. So, and it's so interesting too. Like when I said I went to Hall for my first like sober solo vacation, I wrote stuff that it was not a surprise when I look back on it that I got divorced months later. You know, like I was writing about like, well, questioning things and so when I look back on that, it's like, it's that validation of this is why you trust your gut. Because you knew back then, you know, it's just like, oh yeah, like when someone tries to like gaslight you or something, it's like, no, I know that this is right because I have evidence of it being here, you know, and it's like, it's helped me in my journey forever, but especially my recovery. That's just been like crucial to do.
Yeah. Remembering your own truth, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And like today, like working that out with the bonsai tree and like writing, like realizing that like, I was actually using that job as like, for me as an excuse to start like a new thing. And it's like, no, I don't need to do that. But if I wouldn't have wrote that out, I would have like just been in my mind with all the like chaos of everything.
Yeah, that's a good point. I feel like I had something happen similarly that like has broken my brain for like the last 6 weeks. That happened to me in therapy, which I can get into maybe on a different episode, guys, because it's a lot. But the one thing that I wanted
about it.
Yes. But the one thing that I wanted to get into was building a community, because I think A, that's how we met, was like seeking community, but B, I hear you tell me all the time about the community that you surround yourself with. And I think it's such an amazing resource. We've talked about it before on the podcast, but you're like a live member. I don't know, a live spokesperson, I guess. And I want you to kind of share your experience because it's an invaluable resource. And I love that you like actively go every single day. And I feel like you're just a really good role model for how to seek out. So tell us what it is. And then also tell us like, how was it for you in the beginning? And then what's it like now?
Okay. And thank you for saying all that. I really appreciate it. It is something that has been, again, vital to my choosing me, is having a community. So the community is the Luckiest Club that Laura McCowan, who wrote We Are the Luckiest, started during the pandemic, just as kind of like okay, you know, I'm going to start these Zoom calls. And so that was in March of 2020 that it started. I didn't know about it when I got sober in May of 2020. I didn't have any social media. I didn't know that it started then.
I didn't know that it started during the pandemic. For some reason, I thought it was before, but maybe it was just like an online forum beforehand. I don't remember.
Yeah, like I know she had like Home, and then her book was coming out, like or either came out like in January. I know you guys had her on like when it was just coming out. So it kind of was like in tandem with that. And so when it started, they met on Zoom. And, you know, when I got sober, like I said, in May, I didn't realize there was even, the only thing I ever heard of was AA and like going to actual meetings. So I never even thought that those would be virtual. Like I didn't even like research it or anything. I literally had like my podcast for my community and like my audiobooks that I like would listen to and stuff. On your podcast, when you guys had the Zoom Halloween call, when I was on that, there was a lady on there who said that she was a part of this Luckiest Club. And I'm like, oh my God, I love that book. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to check that out. And so the election was like the next week.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yes.
The 2020 election.
Yes.
And because of the election, they were having these pop-up meetings. So they were having meetings at 8 a.m., which they had never had before. 8 a.m. Eastern. And so as soon as like, right when I heard about it, I went online and was like, wow, okay. Like, what is this Zoom? Like, this is wild. And so the election day came, and going back to the last election, I knew, I guess I was building in some self-care even when I was like, the last election was so traumatic. Like the day after, I remember like crying that in the morning because I went to sleep like not really knowing or maybe not wanting to realize it. And so this in 2020, I'm like, I took off the next day. I had a therapy session the next day. I was like, I'm going to do some self-care. And I was I have a picture of me that morning, like under the covers in my bed. And by that point, I had had a discussion with my, husband at the time, and said, we actually had a discussion that summer. And I said, if you're going to keep drinking at night, I can't smell it. I can't sleep. Like I'm not getting any sleep. Like you have to sleep in the next room.
Mm-hmm.
And so I set that boundary, and so we weren't even sleeping in the same room at this point. And so that morning I woke up on the election day, and I was just like so nervous. And I'm like, oh, there's that like pop-up meeting I saw. And so I joined the Zoom call at 8 a.m., like in my bed. And I saw all these squares of people that like looked like me. And I don't know if I expected to see like Hollywood's version of what like a quote like alcoholic like looks like, but I was just like, oh my God, like, okay, so these are like normal quote looking people just like me.
Sure.
And some people, it just said their name.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't show their picture. And some people just said iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't know who was, whatever was behind it. Yeah, who it was. And it was Laura. Like she was hosting it, and she was like, hi, like, this is a sobriety support community. Like we don't do dogma. So there's no religion, like there's no dogma. Like we, like the only criteria is like a desire to get and stay sober. That's it. And she like did a beautiful reading. And then I really love that the readings are always just, the host just kind of picks whatever on their mind. And that's kind of like the topic. And then there's this moment of like breath that we all take together. And some hosts have it go a little longer. Some do a reading a little longer, but there's this moment of like just all of us like breathing and then or meditating or whatever. And again, not everybody's on camera. Sometimes I have to get some like work done. So I'm like multitasking. It just, and then then the host will kind of talk a little bit about the reading, and then they open it up and you can share. And you just like raise your hand like you do on a Zoom call. And that first meeting, I like in the chat, you write, if you've been sober for like 30 days or less. And I didn't realize that. So I put my day count in, which I'd been sober since May, and it was November. And I was like, oh, I broke the rules. Like I was already like scared that I'm like, oh my God, I'm breaking the rules. I didn't know. And then I was like, well, I have to share, and I didn't even realize at that time, like sharing on your first meeting, like it's incredible when someone does that because it's so all the things. But I just had to like get it out. Well,
you weren't newly sober either at that point. You had
right,
a while
exactly.
to sit
it wasn't
with
my
it,
day
right?
one.
Yeah.
Right. And I just was like, oh my God, I want to talk to people. Because by that point I was like really isolated and just having people to like hear me and like get what I was saying. And so I was actually the last person to go on that meeting. I will never forget it. And I just like wept. Like I was just like sobbing and like thanking Laura and thanking the community and just being like, it was actually like that weekend when I kind of knew like the divorce was like going to happen. And so I knew like I would have like a tough kind of road ahead of me and like didn't really know what to expect. And just like all these chat comments started flowing in like, we love you, like congratulations, like welcome. And I was just like floored by these people like caring about me. I was a stranger
and showing
them,
up, right? Yeah,
totally. And being like, here's my cell phone number, here's my email. And I was just like, whoa. And I remember hanging up and I took a picture of myself after that call and I wrote about it. And it was funny because, so TLC, they celebrated their 2 years in March. And I put a picture up of, I have a sober inspiration board down in my office. And I have a picture of it behind me. And I was holding up, I put it next to that picture of me after that first meeting and said like, happy birthday TLC. And it was just wild to see, like, I just look like so much like present, and like with myself, but like those tears were like just so genuine that I'm glad that I like had that, like I captured that moment. And the community has been, it's interesting because, so they just started doing some live events where, it's crazy because there's these, and you and I have had this moment where it's like, we've knew each other online only for so long and Zoomed and all the things, but like you meet these people in real life and you're like, it's weird because like, it's not weird.
Yeah, it's not weird, but it is. It's like weird to see like Jac is really tiny. She looks tall on screen, but she's not. You're like a tiny person. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and I think that there's always like that, like that realization of seeing somebody in 3D versus like on a screen where you're like, oh yeah, they are like a real person in the world.
Oh my gosh. So I went to the Chicago event. They just had it a couple weekends ago. And I went out to dinner with two of my friends, the one I had met before, the one I had just met, but like the three of us went to dinner like we had been friends for like years, you know, because you share such deep things. And you're there for each other in such different ways. And you see each other
on a regular basis, right? Yeah.
Right. And the one of my friends that was at that dinner, she created this, like, there's a group of us that meet on Saturday mornings. And she like started that. And so they were in Walgreens. And I was like, I walked in, there were so many people, I'm like, I can't. So I'm like, I'm going to go wait on the corner.
I'm not waiting.
So I'm not, you know me in lines, like I don't do lines. I couldn't wait in there. I didn't need anything. I was like, I'm going to go wait outside. So I'm outside and I was on my phone. I put my phone away and all of a sudden I see this guy kind of like looking at me and then he goes, Jac. And it's one of the members that I have known now for like over a year. And I'm like, hey, and we just like hugged and it was on a Chicago downtown, like random like meeting. And it was like that all weekend. You know, seeing these people and then just like meeting up with them. And then, seeing how tall people were was one of like the gnarliest things. Cause some people I'm like, whoa, they were so much taller, like shorter. But us all being in the same room and then standing up and like sharing was just, it's like that full circle of thinking of like in my bed the day after the election, how lonely I felt, you know, and then going there where it was a live event because we could like leave our houses now, you know, and in safe ways too. Like we wrote like on name tags, like hugs or no hugs. If you didn't want to be hugged, then that was fine. You know, it was,
well, I think it's like, that's how you made friends, right? Like that's how you made sober friends is showing up.
Oh my God. That's how I made friends. And that's where I met my girlfriend. Like I met like my girlfriend who I've been dating now for over a year in that community. And it didn't start that way, obviously, you know, but it's like that. And then meeting like these friends who I reach out to on bases where like how I connect like with you, like on that level of
like we text as friends, right? Yeah. Like they're your friends. They're not just like people in your sobriety group.
Right. There's people there that like that I know will be with me through anything and like, and vice versa, you know? And I've even said like, I mean, the last couple of months were like really tough for me. And I would say to them, like, thank you for letting me lean on you like this. Like there will come a time where I promise, like I will be sturdy again to lean on, you know? And it's like, I think it's that thing in sobriety that with women, we can have that like net for each other. And then we also know like, there's going to be a time where like, I will need it. So like I can be strong for you right now. And there'll be a time where I know you're going to do it right back to me, where there were friends in my past that like, I couldn't count on them and they couldn't count on me. And it was just kind of like, we're friends because of like circumstances that I don't know, like this just seems like so different. And I never would have realized the friendships and connections that like choosing me in like recovery would have given me. Never in a million years would I've thought about that. And through TLC, I've gotten to like be a speaker a couple of times, like share my story. And some of the meetings they have are closed meetings. So they have closed meetings. And I shared at those who identify as women meeting. And I got to talk about different things that I necessarily maybe wouldn't talk about at an open meeting, you know? And so it's just given.
So it's men, women, anybody, everybody, right?
There's closed men's meetings.
Okay.
Yeah. There's open meetings. Like if you go on like the luckiestclub.com, there's a schedule of like all the meeting times. And I think there's like 40 some meetings or something like a week now.
Okay. Wow.
And it's funny because those 8 a.m. pop-up meetings they're like a staple now, you know, they're every day.
Do you log in every day?
I do. Yeah, I definitely go to, I would say 90% of the time I go to the 8 a.m. meeting. And then I go usually there's 10 o'clock ones on Saturdays and Sundays. But like I said, there's a group of us who meet at 8:30 on Saturday mornings.
Mm-hmm.
And so I usually like try to get on that. They have them at 7 o'clock in the evening. So just depending on like what I'm doing, but the 8 a.m. ones are kind of my like staple of, there was one at noon today. I was doing some work, but I went on that one. So it's just kind of how my schedule is. But, just like hearing other people share, it is, when people say sharing is like an act of service, because like I do always hear things that help me and make me feel like I'm not alone, or, I'm not the only one that like this has happened to.
Well, I think too, like sometimes if you're in a dark place, like even showing up to something like that and being of service to someone else, just saying like, hey, I see you, can make you feel better because it makes you feel less alone too. And you can kind of be of service, even if you don't have that much to give, right? Like you can just say, I hear you. Like if you need to be leaning on other people, you can still be of service in really small ways. And I think that that's really what people are looking for, at least what I was looking for in early sobriety. I mean, that's why we started the podcast, was like, how do we share with others and like build a community?
Yeah. And you're right. Like even, there's people that don't maybe ever turn on their camera, but they write in the chat something that someone else will read that wasn't even for that person. And it's like, they're there, like you click through and see there's over 100 people on or 200 people on, and you're like, you're all there in that moment, no matter, there's people all over the world on them. Like I have a friend in Ireland, I have a friend, all over. And it's like, when I shared my story, I had a woman in Australia read me, like she shared afterwards and was thanking me, and had something that I had said like in a meeting, in a chat, like written down, that she read like every day to herself. And like her being able to tell me that was just incredible.
Yeah, because you never know how you're like impacting someone else. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. And so that's what that community has just been such a part of my journey, and like all the things that I've gone through the past 2 years. Like that, what I was going to say when I talked about the Chicago event was, I was thinking like the one constant the last like 2 years has pretty much been like TLC. Like that's been one of the things that hasn't really, I've been like pretty consistent with that. And so I'm like very grateful for that community. And it really was like crucial. And it is like as part of my recovery.
I love that. I was going to do rapid fire questions, but we've been talking for a long time. I mean, what else? What do you think? Do you have any questions for me? I mean, how do you want to wrap this up?
Oh my gosh, it has been. We've been talking and talking.
This is what always happens.
Oh my gosh. What do you think is something that like still surprises you with having the podcast? And I think like, and so again, like for me, the fact that I'm like recording this episode with you and we're like real life friends, and you were someone that like I listened to when I was like getting sober, like that probably is like a little surprising, like in a way that it's like how many people you've impacted, So it's like, are there still things that you're like surprising, like, or that like shocks you?
I mean, I feel like I dropped the ball on being able to connect with more people. And I think that that's also because I had this revelation while having the podcast that I need to go back to school and become a therapist. And that's really limited how much bandwidth I have for connection. And I think that has, I kind of feel bad about that, right? Because when I did get a chance to talk with some people, I mean, some of you guys that I've connected with over Instagram, like we've had long conversations, we've been friends for a minute, friends for a month, friends for a year. And I don't take any of those like relationships for granted. I think something that's kind of popped up for me recently is just also feeling very isolated because I've been working, because I've been in school, because I have so many responsibilities that like I miss connecting with people in sobriety more often and developing those friendships, because it is a friendship that goes to another depth that, like you were explaining with your TLC friends, it's like you can get deep very easily and very quickly, and you can get to know somebody because we're more comfortable with being vulnerable perhaps, and there's no substances getting in the way of that. So I think something that surprises me is that you would think that I have all of these friends in sobriety, and in reality I only have like a handful of them, and it would love more. So I feel like maybe I need to join TLC too, because right now I can't be leading in the way with the Seltzer Squad that I want to be leading. I think something that surprises me is that I still want to do the podcast. I mean, I wouldn't have, if you would have told me like year one that we would still be doing it at this point, I would have like laughed at you. But it's something that I genuinely look forward to doing, like every time I record, with the like that, you know, the spare occasions where like life is really stressful and it feels like another thing to check off the list. Like I genuinely love to connect with sober people and to hear their stories and to share mine. And I think that just kind of re-informs me that I'm making the right decision going back to school. So there's
God. Yeah. You're going to be incredible.
We'll see.
Yeah. Well, you already are incredible.
I'm halfway there.
You're like my therapist in a lot of different ways, but yeah, I mean, I feel like, I know like just as someone who has listened and like, you know, caught up on the past and like got all the way like to here, it's just been like you keeping the podcast going. And I know like with all the things that you and Jess both have like had on your plates and there's so many things that you guys have both been like, but always produce that. Like that is like such an act of service that you have done like for the sober community. And I've just been grateful to be part of your life and being able like to have the Seltzer Squad. Like I feel like I don't have Facebook, so I'm not like on that group, but like I still feel like connected, you know, like when the hot mess stories and with the questions and all of those things, like I can resonate with all of that, you know, and I feel like it is part of my community is the Seltzer Squad, you know, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm happy that it's still here, and I hope that we're still helping people. I mean, I don't know. I still have fun doing it.
I know. I mean, I literally look forward to like an episode every Friday, and you know that because me and your sister got on your case when you guys forgot to put it out.
Yes, I do have people that text me when something happens and it doesn't go exactly as planned. So I mean,
I have no doubt you're helping people still. You're helping me, so I know you are.
Yeah. What has been the most surprising thing about your sobriety?
I would say, I think just being able to fully embrace like myself, you know, there were just, being able to be me in all the ways, you know, and being able to like speak my truth and say the things that I need to say and not worrying about having to fix something or letting whatever I'm going to do or say, like, I feel safe with myself, you know, like I didn't realize how much I didn't trust myself until I had some like sobriety under me and was like, wow, I never trusted myself before, you know? And I think that's been like the most surprising thing, because when I decide something or when I say something, like it is truth. And like, I stand in that. So it's like, when I say something or feel it, like I know that I can trust that. And so when I say something, like it just feels more like grounded, because I know like I'm not going to like regret this tomorrow or anything like that, because I know what I'm saying is like how I'm actually feeling and I've thought about it. And so that's been like, I think the most surprising thing is just how much I can trust myself and lean into that.
Very proud of you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I mean, you have been here like pretty much from the beginning. Definitely the beginning of all the like transitions and different things for sure.
All right. Well, what?
I would know. I was just going to say, like, I remember when, during like right after, like 2 weeks after the election, us like sending each other pictures like that Saturday evening when we were like, I was lighting candles and like, I was like finally being like, oh my God, we can breathe. But that's when we started like engaging like more with like
Yes.
video and different things like that. And yeah, that's just been like, yeah, you've been there like from all of that. So
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for you.
Some funny highs and lows for sure for everybody involved.
Yes.
I think that's it, squad. I don't know. If you have questions, find a way to get them to me. Send us an email, seltzersquadpod@gmail.com. I am off of school for 4.5 weeks, so I'm going to try to get my shit together and be more
Ooh.
involved with everybody here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for coming, Jac. Do you want to do the outro
Thank you
with
for
me?
having me. Yes, I've said it for like 2 years.
Okay, you can kick us off.
Oh no, you have to do
Okay, I'll
it.
do it. Until we meet again.
Be nice to yourself.
And don't forget,
Hangovers
hangovers
suck.
suck.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. Every review helps other listeners find us. Music by Jac Walsh. Art by Kate Sander. For show notes and resources, check out seltzersquad.com.